Hey everyone, welcome back to History on Repeat. Today we're back to our normally scheduled military badassery. We're looking into a story of sacrifice, trust, and military grit from the early days of the American Revolution. Their actions during the Battle of Long Island might be the reason why I don't enjoy tea and crumpets on a regular today. They're known as the Maryland 400. Soldiers from the 1st Maryland Regiment of the Continental Army who played a pivotal role not only in the battle, but in America as we know it. By the end, you'll get the full picture, who they were, what they did, and why it mattered. And maybe why their story isn't as well known as it should be. Let's get into this. But first... Gotcha. You probably thought I was going to do the, am I not early enough for the turtle, blah, 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 blah. No. Today is different. No more sub to my videos. From now on, you'll just see this thing down here-ish. Isn't that nice? Yeah. No more desperately asking for subscriptions. Just this thing. One more time for good measure. I like it. It's the summer of 1776. The war is underway. The American colonies have declared independence on the 4th of July because, you know, America. The British are moving to strike hard. The Continental Army, led by the man, the myth, the general, George Washington, which if you don't know who he is by now, it's a story for another time filled with cherry trees, horse teeth, and a large white house. Anyways, George has been scrambling to organize his forces in New York because the British see New York as a major strategic target. The 1st Maryland Regiment has been organized earlier in the year and was sent to New York to support Washington and the rest of the Continental Army. According to the Maryland State Archives Research Project, Finding the Maryland 400, these men arrived in the Big Apple in the summer of 1776, just in time for the event that made them legends, the Battle of Long Island. The British land on Staten Island in July of 1776, giving Washington time to dig in around Brooklyn Heights. He spreads his forces across Long Island, thinking he can block the main roads and hold the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
Here's the problem. His lines are spread way out. Meanwhile, General Howe, leader of the British forces, who's honestly a very underrated tactician, plans a 3-part attack. One group hits the American defenses from the front, one keeps pressure in the center, and a third, led by General Henry Clinton and Charles Cornwallis, sneaks around the back through a little-known road called Jamaica Pass. Which, to his credit, a little bit, Washington had scouts watching that road, but they were taken down without a single shot fired. Which is unfortunate because on August 27th, 1776, the trap is sprung. Picture this: early morning fog, gunfire echoing through the woods in modern-day Prospect Park. The Americans are holding out at places like Battle Pass and Flatbush when suddenly they're getting hit from behind. It's total chaos. The Maryland and Delaware troops try to hold the line, but the British flanking maneuver cuts off thousands of Continental soldiers. Lord Stirling orders a retreat of most of his troops across a marshy stream called Gowanus Creek. However, he orders the Maryland contingent to stay behind and cover the retreat. This is where the Maryland 400 comes in. I should preface the number 400 is actually more legendary than exact, because experts think their numbers were between 260 to 270 men, which is honestly more impressive. Their commander, Major Mordecai Gist, was ordered to hold the line near a small farmhouse owned by a guy named Cartelu, later known as the Old Stone House, which is convenient for me because saying that last name is pretty hard. But here's the wild part. Gist wasn't supposed to be in charge that day. His boss, Colonel William Smallwood, was stuck at a court-martial in Manhattan. So the job of leading the Marylanders fell right into Gist's lap. He was only in his early 30s, born in Baltimore with zero experience commanding under real fire. And facing them, 2 full brigades of British regulars and Hessian troops, including men under Lord Cornwallis, about 2,000 men in total, all backed by artillery. But instead of running, the Marylanders charged. And not just once, they charged 6 times, bayonets fixed, drums beating, surrounded by sheer terror. Each time they went up the slope towards the British positions, they got hammered by cannon and musket fire. One of the final charges, Gist led about a dozen men right up to the British lines, trying to retake the old stone house itself. Almost all of them were killed. Out of roughly 260 men, only about a dozen or 2 dozen made it back alive. The rest were dead, wounded, or captured. Watching from a distance, George Washington reportedly said, "Good God, what brave fellows I must this day lose." Because apparently everyone talked like Yoda back then. Regardless, he knew those Marylanders were buying him time, and it worked. Their sacrifice gave the rest of the army a few precious hours to regroup and retreat to Brooklyn Heights. Without them, the British would have broken through and trapped everyone against the river. The entire war might have ended right there. Facing absolute disaster, Washington basically needed a miracle, and he got one. The weather saved him. A huge fog rolled in, and under cover of darkness, Washington organized a complete evacuation across the East River to Manhattan. They used fishing boats, rowboats, even merchant vessels, quietly moving thousands of soldiers and horses and cannons all night. When the fog lifted in the morning, the British realized the Americans were gone, every single one of them. It's one of the greatest retreats in military history.
Damn him! Damn that man!
The Maryland regiment was practically destroyed that day. Out of the 400 or so men in the regiment at the start of the battle, fewer than 100 were fit for duty afterwards, but their stand became legendary. Maryland earned the nickname the Old Line State because of that moment. The Old Line being the line of Maryland troops who stood their ground when everyone else was retreating. Even the British were impressed. A Hessian officer later wrote that the Marylanders fought like veterans and that they stood firm until they were cut to pieces. If you go to Brooklyn today, you can actually visit the site. The old stone house has been rebuilt and the surrounding area still has markers and plaques honoring the Marylanders. But what's wild is that for a long time, their story was almost forgotten. Only in the last few decades have historians really pieced together who those men were: farmers, tradesmen, and young volunteers who stood their ground when no one else could. The Maryland State Archives has piled a roster and biographies of dozens of the men in the 1st Maryland Regiment who fought in Brooklyn. One soldier, Sergeant William Sands, was only 19 years old when he wrote home on August 14th, 1776, about the scene in New York before the battle, only to be killed a couple of weeks later in the fighting. Then there's Lieutenant Joseph Butler from the 4th Company. Butler's men were a part of those desperate charges Gist led near the old stone house. When the smoke cleared, Butler was among the wounded. Captured by the British, he died not long after captivity. There's no record of where he was buried, just that he never made it home to Maryland. And when you think about the Maryland 400, you think about courage, but it's also heartbreak. Every name like Butler's represents a family that never saw their son again. And still, because of that sacrifice, the rest of the army and the revolution itself lived on. But there is one story that doesn't end in death: the story of Samuel and William McMillan, Scottish-born brothers from Hartford County, Maryland. They fought together in the Maryland 400, and during the chaos at Gowanus Creek, they were both captured. They got thrown onto prison ships, basically floating hellholes, and later shipped off to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Most prisoners didn't survive those conditions, but somehow the McMillan brothers did. They eventually escaped and made their way back south and rejoined the fight. Their story's been pieced together from pension files and letters. No glory, no big monuments, just grit. If the Maryland 400 had a heartbeat, it was guys like the McMillans. Ordinary men who refused to give up even after they had lost everything. So the next time you think about the revolution, don't just picture big victories. Think of moments that could have ended it all, and the men who refused to let that happen. The Battle of Long Island isn't as famous as, say, Bunker Hill or Yorktown, but honestly, it deserves to be. The Battle of Long Island was an American defeat. No way around it. But the Maryland 400's stand kept it from being a total disaster. They didn't fight for glory. They fought so others could live to fight another day. If you like this story, hit that like button, subscribe for more badass moments or individuals in history, and drop a comment with what you'd like to see me cover next, or, like always, if I might have missed anything. Thank you for watching History on Repeat. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's History on Repeat.
Hell yeah.